Hey everybody, welcome welcome here to another installment of Disgruntled. Today's conversation, I think we're gonna have a conversation about identity. Jason and I were kind of talking offline about chosen identity that maybe not maybe, right, Jason? It's probably not maybe. It's a thing.
It's a guarantee.
Yeah, the identity that veterans choose to wear, the mask that they choose to wear after their service. And we were having a discussion about how there's really nothing else like it. It's the only, and if anybody could come up with anything else, please leave it in the comments below. But it's really the only occupation, I suppose you could call it, that you can do for a short period of time. And it is then the identity that you carry with you, that you display, that you wear on your sleeve, that you wear on your hat, that you display on your truck, the persona that you push forward with the rest of your life, but some not. And so we kind of were just wondering why maybe that would be. And I think it's an interesting conundrum to think of, Jason, because I don't know that I've ever thought of it, to be quite honest with you.
Right. Well, I think there's another piece that you think about where there's I think it's a Chinese philosophy that you have three faces. The one that you wear at work, the one that you wear at home with your family and friends, and then the one you only show yourself in the mirror. But I think with veterans, there's a fourth face. And sometimes that face is actually the one that we can wear in all three situations.
Interesting.
And so, because it's, a lot of times it's your career professionals that carry that persona through their life. I mean, there are very few retired law enforcement officers that I've ever met where I had a question about what they did.
Yeah.
Firefighters, nurses, a
Yeah.
lot of traumatic or high stress jobs. They become that person. They are that person every day throughout their career. So it's quite natural that they would roll out. However, you've got shitbags like me that serve a couple of years in a place, and I didn't have a 20-year retirement. I didn't have a career in it. But it certainly is something that when I walk around, I know my good buddy Dan, my neighbor, he always made the joke. He's like, yeah, man. He's like, you never had to tell me that you were in the military. Like, it just oozed off me.
Really?
But I asked him why. It's apparently the way that I carry myself, the way that I talk to other people, the way that I'm always paying attention to the things going. He's like, dude, thanks for telling me, but story's out. Motherfucker, you ain't hiding it from anyone.
Well, that's interesting to me because I think that out of all the veterans that I know, which is a quite large plethora of them, I think that you are probably one of the people that displays, I guess, veteran tendencies, if that's what we want to call it. Not the least, but you're not wearing Iraq War veteran shirts and hats.
No, I am not.
And you don't have stickers on your truck. You don't necessarily have like things displayed at your home that say you're a veteran. And so that's interesting to me that he made that observation, because I wouldn't have picked that out, picked you out of that crowd.
Right. And I think it comes down to, sometimes it's how you handle yourself, how you navigate your day. How simple it is. I mean, I catch myself doing it with my kids. They get angry about something. And of course, man, I want to be that dad.
Yeah.
I want to have that empathy. But the moment that empathy line is crossed, you need to correct your shit.
Yep.
Right. Because you're not right. And I'm not going to raise my voice or scream or yell or, create corrective plans for either of them. But it's over. And I think that there are so many of those superpowers we have, these things that run like underneath our skin that project out just in how we go about living life that civilians don't have, unless you're in a job that's maybe military adjacent. And I don't think a lot of, military retirees that haven't had time in a box somewhere, I don't think they carry all those. They carry completely different tendencies. There's no question my old man is a retired officer.
1,000%.
That dude stinks of field grade.
Yeah, just the way he stands.
Just the way he's standing, he can do it. Dude, he's trash bagged out. He hasn't worn sleeves in like a decade and a half. I mean, he's rocking those Tevas. Dad, I love you, but your fashion sense is for shit. And you created me, and I've got terrible fashion
I don't
sense
know. You're wearing the Dixon.
because that's now a new cloaking device. And for anybody out there,
Not a sponsor.
if you are looking for a shirt, though, I mean, these are the shirt, period. I mean, even my son has a collection of Dixons. And thanks to this, man, I've had to take out a second mortgage to ensure that I have enough Dixons in my closet to keep up
Everybody should have
with
at
the
least
Richard
five.
Mille. Five is a good start.
I mean, but everybody should have five. Like if you had to, if your boss, wherever you work, said every day of the week this week, I need you to wear a Dixon, you should be able to fulfill that requirement. Bare minimum.
Bare minimum. Yeah. Okay, fine. I'll give you the minimum because you still got to have a church Dixon or 20.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I would agree.
I have now bought 2 sport coats to wear over my Dixons.
There you go.
So the Dixon is the most versatile shirt.
Yeah. And most comfortable.
Oh, 100%. Maybe that's the problem. Is I got to buy the old man. I got to get the old warbird into a freaking Dixon.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we should get him like a very vibrant colored one.
Oh, he would rock the shit out of
He'd
that.
love it. He would love it.
If he could, if my mother would allow him, he would wear those. Are they banana Joe, something Joe? Like those Cuban smoking shirts that like every old Vietnamese
Tommy
guy you've
Bahama.
ever, Tommy Bahama.
Yeah.
I don't even think he'd have to wear pants. He'd be so comfortable.
I hope he goes on a cruise sometime soon. I'm going to buy him a Tommy Bahama shirt.
You don't think that closet's full of them? You're tripping.
Not the one I'm going to get him.
But you know, and it is funny, right? Because you see that on my old man.
Yeah.
You know, and there's a lot of fathers, you know, of my friends growing up, but there was really no question. I don't think any of them ever said anything, but you kind of had that wide ranging feel of military.
Yeah.
And I think it's something that we all do. And it's not just the stickers. You know, I can guarantee when your job gets frustrating, you just slow down and make it easy and knock it out where everybody else is getting flustered.
Yeah. Yeah. There's no question that I am a lot more comfortable in chaos than I am in like this lulled sense of security. And I was trying to explain it to my wife at one point in our relationship because you have the ability to kind of control the tempo, right? You have the ability to kind of make the decision to slow down what's going on around you and slow is smooth, smooth is fast. And just finish this, and just do everything, you know, in whatever your process is and just get it, knock it out. And then before you know it, it's all done and everyone's still all hyped up and running around and all discombobulated. So yeah, I agree 1,000%. I wonder if there's anybody, and nobody's ever told me that they would be like, yeah, absolutely. You're a veteran. Like it's just dripping off of you. Cause I like to think that a lot of people don't know unless they ask the question or I tell them, or I wear some kind of, you know, cause I wear a lot of military style ball caps, you know, like Memorial Day twins hats and things like that, salute to service and stuff like that. But other than that, I don't think that I really wear it on my sleeve.
License plate.
Yeah, well, yes, I do have a Purple Heart license plate, and I got to tell you, it came in handy recently.
Did it again?
Yes.
Oh man.
Yes, it did. But that's neither here nor there. We're not talking about that. But here's my question to you. What do you think about the folks that have completely distanced themselves from identifying? Because I believe that they're out there too. The ones that were just like, yeah, I'm just not going to talk about it. I'm not going to offer any information. I'm not going to carry or wear or own anything that says I was in the military.
Well, I think I can relate to them.
Okay, why?
You know, I can empathize with maybe not wanting to wear it or to have it out there because there are some, you know, pretty painful things that kind of came with that time.
Yeah.
And if you want to choose to dwell on that, why would you want to constantly relive that? Or if it's just something that you haven't gotten past, or you can even go the other route where it's the guys that, are continually raising the flag that they are veterans, were in the military, and people like, they give them the old purpose.
Yeah.
Like, no way. No, they don't believe it. And so but I think those two people, they kind of, they, even though they're on complete opposite ends of the spectrum, they kind of run in a parallel track, because there are a ton of dudes. You're just not going to get away from it. I mean, how many dudes have you met that are bona fide, that have got some killer stories once you get to know them? But when you first met them, you're like, I know there's something there, but I don't know what it is.
Quite a few. Well,
Right.
not quite a few, but a few.
But a handful, and they're there. And those are the guys where they can't get away from it. So they'll distance themselves spatially away from humans if they don't want to deal with it.
Okay, so what do you think about their experience caused them to take up that mindset? Because I believe that if you served and you did so honorably, not that you have to display it and you got to wear it on your sleeve and scream it from the mountaintops. I don't agree with that. But I think it's something that you should be proud of, because it is a small percentage of our population that choose to do it. Although we volunteer, it's a job, we were compensated, we were paid. But I still think that it's something to be proud of, because it is not a profession, it's not a job or an occupation that a lot of people aspire to do at any time in their lives. So I think that for the small percentage of our population of people that choose to do it, I think that they should be proud of it. I don't think that they need to display it everywhere. But I would like to know why folks that completely distance themselves, and maybe they are proud of it, they just don't feel a need to.
They don't want it front and center, or
Yeah.
they had to do something. Like you and I, we're just low ranking pubes, right? We never had to do any of the really tough things, like writing letters home,
Yeah.
to families, to be the ones that either designed a mission that didn't work out, or to lead the mission that didn't work out. I mean, it's one thing, I'd probably say, when you lose somebody in a unit and they're just kind of a peer, versus somebody that, you were tasked with ensuring that their training was correct, that your plan was correct, that the execution went off smashingly, so you could bring every soul back home. And I think if you look at, maybe lieutenants and company commanders that have suffered, losses, that you probably see them stepping back from that space when they get out, because they don't want to relive that. They could have had the most amazing time, but I think that would be something that I would carry heavy on my heart, knowing that it was, again, it had likely very little to do with them. But a good leader is going to be somebody who is going to wear that the rest of their fucking life,
Yeah.
period. And so who would want to be reminded of that? Because
Well,
that's the thing that we don't often talk about, is that.
I think you're right. I don't think that anybody really talks about that often. I think we talk a lot about the trigger puller. I think we talk a lot about the guys on the front lines. But I agree with you. There's certainly something to be said about being the guy in the room that is making the decision, and then knowing, all right, we're going to send out 1,000 soldiers, let's say, for conversation's sake. We're going to go take this city, right? And we're going to send 1,000 soldiers at it. We know that we're going to take 20% casualties, hands down, for sure. We're going to, if not more. Okay, well, this is the best plan we have. All the other plans are 23% casualties, 37% casualties, and 28%. So let's go with, of course, the least amount of casualties. This plan seems like it's going to work. We got the equipment, we got the plan, we got the gear, we got the people that know how to do it all, blah, 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 blah. Let's roll. That's a hell of a mind fuck too.
Right. And that's your top down.
Knowing that you're about to send 200 soldiers to their death.
Yeah, well, top down, that's the potential. I mean, you look at acceptable field loss for taking a space.
And you know what? Shame on me, or maybe even us, for not having these discussions before. I've never really thought about having that discussion. But yeah, I mean, put yourself in the shoes of a person that knows you're sending 200 young men and women to die.
And then take that down to the level of execution with a lieutenant who's planted with the guys going out.
Yeah.
And they're the ones making the field corrections. They're the ones making, the theoretical hard calls.
Yeah.
That's an extraordinary burden to carry. Now, when it works out well, hero. When it doesn't, zero.
And we like to shit on officers every now. I mean, I'm guilty of that. I had some shitty officers in my career, but there is something to be said about a guy who's got big enough balls to walk down the hallway to the ready room or whatever, and be like, all right, boys, let's go. Here's the plan. Here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna be here. You're gonna go there. Here's your equipment. Here's what we need: water, ammo, equipment, blah 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 blah. And I was never given a briefing where they were like, yeah, well, this is the mission tonight, and we're gonna lose fucking 15% of you. So they don't ever tell the soldiers that, of course, but those guys know it.
They know what the potential is.
That's heavy.
Huh. Well, and then you go back.
Really
Just
heavy.
go back one generation to Vietnam.
Right.
Those cats, and our dear friend Mike Rivard.
Yeah.
That cat has got some stories, and he carries it about as well as anybody. And if it weren't for that trident on his lapel, I don't think you would know. And we didn't know when he was, a little younger, but certainly in the kick-ass time of his life where he's sitting right now, I don't think anybody would ever look at him and be like, oh man, yeah, the weight that guy carried. No, that dude had it all on his shoulders, and he carried it for a long time after.
And I think that Mike is the kind of guy that once you know who he is and what he's done, then it makes a lot of sense. But until you know that, you would never pick it out.
Right. So
yeah, it's heavy.
But there's one type. I mean, there's so many different types of veteran.
Yeah, that's just one scenario.
That's just one scenario. That's that. I mean, and you all, for again, dozens of you that are listening, you probably know a veteran. And just think about their personality, and maybe you knew them before they joined. And I think there's such a transformation that occurs, and I think that's why our identity is sometimes easier to float back into that, because it is who you've become. I think it's a career that in a very short period of time, in 1 year, can change the entire trajectory. You're not gonna throw garbage as a trash hauler for 1 year, and it's gonna change how you look at everything the rest of your life.
Yeah,
it's not gonna happen. You're not gonna get that as a longshoreman. You're not gonna get that as a bridge builder. It's almost like that joke. Joe builds 1,000 bridges, and then he bangs one goat.
Yeah,
and
he's a goat fucker for life.
Goat fucker the rest of his life. When he talks about the bridges, it's almost like being in the military is the goat fucking. And then that just kind of it just kind of happens, and then you're there, and then you can have the career guy that it's there. It's different. I think it truly is. Retired military versus veteran persona and actions and all those things. There are certain similarities, but you get a lot of one particular thing in the veteran culture that you don't get in the retired.
Yeah. Well, as you were talking, it made me, when you said, you tend to fall back into that identity. And I think you're 1,000% right. And I think it becomes easy. And I think that's why. And it reminded me of after my first deployment, which was the most active of the two that I did, where I got my Purple Heart and we were actively engaged in combat often. I remember coming home, and maybe part of the reason that we choose this identity is because of how things go when you come home. And I can remember some of my best friends from high school. We played on a basketball team together. And I was asked to play because we all played ball together in school. Yeah, man, I played, and it was awesome. But I wasn't right. Wasn't in the right headspace. And I did some pretty crazy shit. And I think that I scared them or made them extremely nervous. Like I would do shit like I'd have my gun in my gym bag, right? Because I didn't trust going anywhere without a gun on me. I was invited to guys weekend once, and somehow I had a really big whistling firecracker that I had in one of my duffel bags.
Yeah.
And I brought it up there and I was like, yeah, this will be a fun prank. Right. So we were on some lake up north in northern Minnesota. And I went outside to take to take a leak. And I was like, all right, I want to put this big, huge firecracker, throw it in the snow. Right. So you pull the cord and throw it and woo, right. Well, before you know it, like I think like the police showed up or like neighbors showed up and windows were rattling and there was this huge crater in the yard of this guy's parents' cabin that we went to for one weekend every winter. And then, you know, I mean, it was just some wild shit. And I can see now how and why they were like, yeah, I don't know. I don't know if Richard should come back to guys' weekend.
Dude.
And so like after you process that, and at the time I was like, well, you know, cut me some slack here, man. I'm trying. But in all reality, I can see where they were coming from, you know, but you have to process that. And it took me a little while to be like, man, these motherfuckers. And I was upset about it for a little bit.
Were you?
Yeah, because I thought, well, I am who I am. I'm still the same person. I just had a different life experience. And here's the dudes that I grew up with, the guys that I really bonded with not that many years ago. And they, at one point, I felt like they had turned their backs on me. And I know now that that's not it. It was just, I was fucking out of control. I was out of line.
And it could go on for years.
Yeah.
You know, and you don't even realize it.
And so, well, then I just fell back into that personality. I fell back into that identity. And as we quit playing ball together and quit hanging out together, just we got less and less. And then everybody else that was in my life before I had deployed and had that experience that was life-changing to me, I kind of just separated from. Because now here were the some of the closest people to me, and I've scared them off. So what are all these other people that I had experiences with that I felt not necessarily close to, but we're friends. We've known each other for a long time. I don't want to scare off everybody, so maybe I'll just fade into the darkness and I'll just be the token veteran. Right. And maybe that's what they'll all think of me. And everywhere I go, well, this will just kind of be, yeah, Richard, he's kind of a weird fucker, but you know, he's a vet. So we'll just,
we'll just give him that tard pass.
Yeah. We'll just roll with it.
Yeah. Well, and I think, you know, I look back and so I had two dear friends growing up, John and Andrew. And Andy, God love him. I was his best man in his wedding right after I got back.
Well, how'd that go?
Not well. Yeah.
I can imagine.
I will say, and I know Andy and his wife will never see this, but I would say there have been so many times where I've thought, man, I want to drop Bri a quick phone call and just like apologize for that. But it was almost like you're saying, it's like easier to close that door than just be like, hey, yeah, I get it. You know what? It's going to be that maybe a phone call every year or a quick, you know, happy birthday text message, and that's it. Because shit show extraordinaire. I mean, bets were off. I probably couldn't even tell you everything that I did, but I assure you, whatever it was probably fucking crazier than anything I could ever make up. And you know, that's just the stuff that happens, and it takes some time to process out of that person. You know, it's kind of like that reawakening. You know, when the CD-ROM finally slows down, and it's that old, like the old veteran philosophy now. And you kind of see that, and we saw that. I you know, we've talked about it multiple times. Like my buddy's dads, the ones that were body stackers and the ones that weren't, and like those different personas. And that might have even been just like their discharge time. You know, when you start to realize, you know, that's what I did. You know, was it worth the squeeze for me personally? And it's always going to be a yes for me. But was it for the reasons I thought it was?
No,
it doesn't, you know, I guess we'll get the big picture at some point when you get to hear the whole story, but you really start to look at things differently. And that's when you start to really slow down and you kind of look at all that foolishness and nonsense that you pulled right after. And I could say right after, but that right after could be 10 years. No worries. But you know what I mean? I'm just happy you said that because I never thought about that. There are very few people that were friends of mine up until that point that I maintained friendship with. Yeah. And I never thought about it was likely just closing those doors because
it's just easier.
And there wasn't a remote be in anymore. To be honest, I mean, not all of them, but certain people, like, they weren't ever going to understand, and I didn't want them to. But I didn't wanna deal with it. I didn't wanna talk. I don't, you know what I mean? It's easier to not do anything.
You're right. You're right. And the interesting part for me now is that one of these dudes is my cousin through marriage. My wife's first cousin is married to him. And so, like, we vacation together and we hang out together. And, I mean, and when we get together, it's like we never,
Right.
like we've never been apart, I mean, catch up real quick and things are like they've always been. But it took me a little while to just kind of just get into this mindset that maybe it was me. Maybe it was me, and whether it was like my fault or not, and whether it was within my control or not, but maybe it was me. And not maybe, it was me. And so I find it very interesting that we're having this conversation because I've never thought to have it, but it is certainly something that is part of the veteran narrative that the common public, civilians, probably don't think about either, and certainly probably don't understand very well.
No. No, and it's hard to cut those people out.
Because what else is there in somebody's life other than a job that is a year long or a month long or a week long or even like the worst day of your life that changes your persona and your personality forever, including violent crimes? Like, we know that people who are raped or beaten or kidnapped, like, of course that changes you. That's a travesty.
Does, and there might not be people out there that know this either. What's the one section of the population that has the most in common with military and veterans?
Prisons.
See, we all know this,
Mm-hmm. 1,000 indoctrination,
but
all that stuff.
civilians have no idea. I've said this so many times to
3
people.
hots in a cot, baby.
Like I don't think we empathize or understand like prison. Don't get me wrong, it's not like that. But the seclusion from your real world, the reconnections, and all these other things that happen. Now, certainly, I think both of them are earned.
Yeah.
I know there's a lot of not guilty people in prison.
Well,
It's the same thing.
I don't know if it's a lot. There's probably some.
Clearly tongue in cheek here, right? Because my uncle worked in a prison for 30 years and he never met a guy that committed a crime.
Yeah, absolutely,
Go
right?
figure. But we do, and so it's kind of this weird hybrid because there's such different levels of society or societal activities. Something that is done with theoretically with honor, with service in mind, with just pride in being an American to join the military has way more in common with somebody who's incarcerated for whatever reason. I don't care.
Well, it's just it's
dope.
daily life.
It's the lifestyle. It's the
Yeah.
thing that kind of, your detachment from. So when you do get back out, I think it's pretty similar. The mind fuck is when you come off active duty, off a deployment, go back to your regular life. Because again, and I know we've talked about it, but if you deploy on July 1st and you come back a year and change later, it's July 2nd.
Yeah.
For everybody else, it's the real date. And so now you're either in a situation where you want to play catch up, or you're going to try to make up for this time that you lost, or you just can't readjust to the real space that you're supposed to go live in. And so you lack that comfort. You just try to figure it out. And that's, again, maybe there's another reason why the dudes move into the woods. It's a lot easier if you're just taking care of yourself. You don't have to deal with other people. I mean, that's the most hypnotic drug on planet Earth.
Well, it's the realization that for a year and some change, the earth kept spinning without you. And you now have to find a way to catch up. So you have to find a way to run a whole year's worth of earth rotations and then also keep up with current time.
And all do the thing while you're about a 0.2 blood alcohol level.
Yeah, right. And so I think that the most common thing between prisoners and military is the way in which you have to make the decision to change your mindset to get through. The way you have to choose to look at life or the situation or the day or the hour or the minutes or whatever it is to get to the end now, because in the case of the military, this is the commitment you made, this is your job, and it's a lot easier just to go through it than try to quit or go backwards or whatever. Just do it. Just like when you go to prison, if you're gonna make it 6 years in prison because you did something stupid and you got to go sit down for a while, if you don't change your mindset, you're going to crumble. You're gonna get manhandled. You're gonna get your ass whooped. They're gonna auger you out like nobody's business, and you're gonna come out of there a mental case, which is probably why the recidivism rates are so high, because there's really no rehab, right? They just go in there and figure out how to survive, in my opinion.
Can you imagine what the 30, 60, 90 would look like coming out of the prison system?
My God, a lot of needles. So yeah, man, I think that this is really something that we should develop and talk more about, because I think that this is a big one that people outside of military culture probably don't understand all that much. I think that we understand it, but we don't talk about it enough in our own circles to try to figure out maybe this would help that whole coming back home process.
Right. But it doesn't, this idea that, once somebody's home, they deployed 10 years ago, like that's gone. It's never gone.
No,
It's not.
never.
Like the whole idea that all of a sudden everything is going to be normal again, or, oh yeah, well, no, he's just jacked up. He's never coming back.
Yeah.
It's none of that is true. It's just man, it's a process. And I don't think there is one right way or one wrong way. Well, maybe shitload of booze, fireworks, being in weddings.
Yeah.
These are we've traveled these paths and we realize they're not worth a shit. Don't do them. But what I think for every dude, it's something different. Maybe that's where that identity comes in too, because there's they can put forward as much or as little as they want to hold people at arm's length. So either they don't become, the old John Markson that they used to be, that looks just like me, sounds like me, but it wasn't me guy. That I think, well, I know I have. I'll never speak for anybody else, but I've certainly been in that place. Well, maybe that's why. But dude, yeah, I honestly think we could talk about this for another month.
Yeah. Well, I think that we should. I think that we should develop this conversation, and I think that we should bring other people
We
in
gotta
on
get some
it.
dudes down here to talk about it, because this is, even though this was my dumbass idea a couple of days ago, and I leave messages for Big Dog here
Yes, you do.
because I never remember anything anymore.
Me neither.
And it flashed and it hit me. And then as we're actually talking about it, and I've had days to think about it, I hadn't thought about any of the things that we're talking about. We have that quick 5-second conversation, and then we pop smoke and throw the mics on.
Yeah.
But there are so many different tangents and angles. And so, is it a veteran's identity that that's the most important thing, or is it the perception of veterans in the community that's more important? So I think there's even two sides to the same conversation, where as soon as they hear or they hear a story, because sometimes we tell stories that normal people can't relate to.
Yeah. Well, and I think that we take stands and opinions and things like that people also can't relate to. And just like the way that I see things in general conversation with random people or civilians for that matter, no matter what it is, political, sports, movies, pop culture, Kanye, Diddy, all that bullshit. My response is usually people go, "What? No, what?"
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because in my opinion, things are pretty black and white.
Yeah. Oh, and once you've seen the dirt truth of humanity,
Yeah.
you don't wear the rosy colored glasses anymore.
No.
Like the fact that we have to sit here and talk about a fucking dude who had pallets of fucking lube in his house. This doesn't come by happenstance. It's the cat that, you know, wants a certain person at his party each and every time. It's a guy that's got massive love beds all over his parties.
and
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 we're talking about it like there's something here for conjecture.
and secret cameras installed everywhere.
Right.
Yeah,
Got
what
dirt
the
on there.
hell?
Yeah. Get the fuck. Are we wasting an iota of effort? I mean, there's probably less dirt that we had on Saddam when we handed him back over to the Iraqi
Yeah,
people.
yeah,
Right.
yeah. Put
And
this
he was in
guy.
that gallow within 3 fucking days.
I remember. I
And now
remember.
Diddy's probably getting a bunch of that loving that he likes anyway.
Yep. Yeah, they put him in federal pound me in the ass prison, and he's living like a king, probably.
Oh, I guarantee he's but that's the shit, right? Because everybody else, no, why would he ever do that? Like we've seen
Yeah.
people in places where there's unlimited power and money, and shit gets weird.
Yes, dude. Yes. And for further context, I spent 15 years of my life with Stu chasing shitbags all over this country. And if you want to know where the real butthole and armpit of humanity lies, it's in meth and heroin and trailer parks all across this country, urban areas all across this country. So when we hear people talking about how all these disadvantaged people are just down on their luck, it's manufactured to a certain extent. I agree 1,000%. It's not possible
Yeah.
that out of all the thousands of people that we chased for that long, that all of the people that had similar offenses with similar substances or tools were all in similar areas, just different places across the country. And then you switch to a different drug, and anywhere across this country, oh, it's out in the country. It's in the rural areas. Oh, well, this drug's out here. All these drugs are in the urban areas. All the guns are in the urban areas. Like there's so much, there's nothing that doesn't have continuity between location and crime to crime.
Yep.
And so you really get to see the asshole of humanity.
But they were just turning things around before you guys got there.
Yeah, that and they were never wearing their own pants, and these drugs weren't theirs, and I don't know whose car that is I'm driving, all that shit.
Yeah, dude. Well, that's what I always say. It's no different than a politician, man. If their lips are moving, they're lying.
Yeah, man. So anyway, I think that we've beat this one for now, but I definitely think we come back to it at a later date, and we find some folks to also put in on this, because I think that there's multiple different opinions and views, and I think it could be a pretty interesting conversation with a larger group of people for sure.
What's your identity?
Yeah. And why do you choose to wear it that way?
We will frame a new Matt Walsh "What Is" series on this.
Deal. What is your identity? Stick around, folks. Check it out, because I think it's a great idea. Okay. Final thoughts, Jason.
Ain't nothing like a Diddy party. That's all I got.
Well, on that, I guess I'll never know, because the Diddy parties are over and I ain't going to prison to partake in one. Anyway, all right. Good night. Bye.